let us continue. Right after my decision to experiment with shadow theater, I talked about it in tutorial 1, a friend of mine called me and said that he had read about a colored shadow theater in the newspaper. And this trail took me to Switzerland, to a man named Hans-Willy Trüb. He had performed a show with the diffraction of light, the so-called polarization. He taught me a lot in the first workshop, and via him I came to know my first mentor, Rudi Stößel. He was then 85 years old, a former teacher of physics, who discovered the diffraction of light into colors for shadow theater. Most importantly, it was he who realized the unbelievable possibilities of a small radiation, the halogen point light. He had a tiny studio behind his living room, and on many afternoons he initiated me into the secrets of light, his wife bringing us endless cups of tea. It was a very precious time for me. He hardly performed anymore. He was an old man already, and he died in the early 1990s. And I'm still deeply grateful that I had the chance to meet him, with all his gentleness and generosity of spirit. He was one of the 3 men in Europe who simultaneously brought up the transformation of shadow theater from the traditional to the contemporary form. Rudi Stößel was the first. The second was a French shadow player named Luc Amoros. I never came to know him personally. Sometimes he crossed my path on a festival, but I never spoke to him. For one thing, I admired his work so much, but my lack of experience at that time made me reluctant to talk to him about it, and my French is really terrible. But I have seen many of his shows. The first I saw was at the International Shadow Theater Festival in 1988 in Schwäbisch Gmünd. It was called The Tragic Destiny of a Hero Made of Glass, and that was exactly how I felt after the show. It really impressed me, and it really demotivated me. It was so perfect that, as the beginner that I was, I felt terribly small. For sure, he was one of the most exciting shadow players that ever entered the stage. Nowadays, he works a lot more with painting than with shadows, which is a pity. But you can still find some of his old shows on YouTube. If you enter Luc Amoros, it's Luc Amoros, and then La Bounty, Bounty, or Sunjata, Sunjata. Have a look there. The third in the group is Fabrizio Montecchi, the art director of Teatro Giocovitta in Italy. I first met him when I wrote an article about his work in a magazine, and the second time I met him in one of his numerous workshops in Charleville, kind of a university for puppetry in France. He really is the great poet of modern shadow theater. He's the one who entered this art form as deeply as nobody else. He's the real renovator, and his work is breathtaking. You can also find his work on YouTube. If you look for Teatro Giocovitta, I spell it, it's Teatrogivita. By the way, he also wrote a book about shadow theater. In my tutorial about literature, I talk about it. So these 3, Rudi Stößel, Luc Amoros, and Fabrizio Montecchi, are the founders of contemporary shadow theater. And like Picasso stands for Cubism, and his tool is the brush, they stand for modern shadows, and their tool is the light. And there is still another one whom I will never forget to mention. Rainer Reusch, the brave founder of the International Shadow Theater Festival that takes place each 3 years. He gave a stage, a necessary stage to this art form. And each 3 years there are people coming from all over the world to watch the new productions. This art form owes him very much.